Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. Hiya, Dean. It's been another busy week. Now the Premier League's back and all the other leagues are back after the international break and the resumption of the Champions League, where all eyes were on one person, Erling Haaland.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, both games were very good, weren't they? The opening two Champions League matches. And Haaland didn't score, but he did play a role in a goal. And it was a nice audition for him potentially joining Man City, wasn't it? Seemed like he liked the stadium. There was a shot on social media of him walking out at the Etihad for the first time. He seemed pretty impressed by what he saw. So Man City fans have got, reasons to be optimistic.
Yeah, they're getting very excited, I think, all Manchester City fans. He turned up at the team hotel with a blue bag in the colours of Manchester City as well, just to add intrigue to it. But yeah, it's going to be one of the transfer sagas of the summer where Erling Haaland does end up. His future is already probably one of the most fascinating points of this summer's transfer window, and the window hasn't even opened yet. Dean,
Yeah.
Obviously, last week we had his agent Mino Raiola and his father jetting around Europe for talks with interested clubs, having talks with Barcelona and Real Madrid. Obviously, came in for a lot of criticism for that and people not happy with that, but that's the normal thing. An agent's going to go out and meet interested clubs. What was your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this does happen, and usually we don't know or don't care because they're not Erling Haaland and they're not Mino Raiola, so it just goes under the radar. And usually agents are able to meet with clubs, and also the world's usually open, so it's easier to meet in discreet locations or in hotels or bars, and it's harder to do that now, obviously. So yeah, we've all seen the beginning of the Haaland World Tour taking off, beginning at Barcelona, heading on to Real Madrid, and then going on to the rest of Europe from there. Interesting that it began at Barcelona because they've barely been mentioned in conversations up to now because we all presume that they can't afford him. But I think there's always that factor of it's Barcelona, right? Like there's no way Haaland isn't going to look into that, because if there's any possible chance he can go there and play with Messi for a bit, of course he would be keen on the prospect of that. So I think it made perfect sense for that to be the starting block and to say, right, let's go to the biggest two in La Liga and take things from there. And then we'll go over to England and we'll try and bump all the money up over there and see if we actually fancy it after that.
It's going to be a right auction to see who can afford Erling Haaland this summer. But we do know the Spanish clubs are in dire financial straits right now, so affording him would be a big issue for both Real Madrid and Barcelona. But what did you take on Pep Guardiola saying that Manchester City can't afford Erling Haaland, a big striker this summer? I think a pinch of salt we have to take that one with.
Yeah, I mean, he was backtracking within about 24 hours, wasn't he, about that, saying it's impossible. It's not impossible. That Man City's priority is to get a new goal scorer, and there's no doubt about that. It has to be. Even if you didn't have any inside knowledge, you could pretty much guess that one because they're losing Sergio Aguero, and Gabby Jesus can't be relied upon. And while the false nine has worked well for them, of course it has, you still need another option. You still need a guaranteed source of goals. And that's why they're looking down the Haaland path to see whether it's possible. Look, if he genuinely is 180 million euros, then it's a no-go. Like City aren't going to go down that route. And I think that's what the beginning of this is, to be honest. I think it's the first message will be to Dortmund, like, we're not playing this by your rules. Like, you tried this with Man United with Sancho last year. It didn't work for you. It's not going to work for us with Haaland either. Like, if the player's keen, we're keen. And if you don't make the Champions League, you're going to have to offload him. So we'll have to find some middle ground. And ultimately, it probably will cost over 100 million. But come on, we've got to be a bit realistic in this market, right?
Yeah, I think teams are going to have to be a bit creative. Maybe if they are to get a deal done for Haaland, the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester City, probably swap deals might be on this one as well, being offering players in exchange plus money, maybe to encourage Dortmund to sell.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a route that clubs are going to go into more and more anyway. Like we saw it a bit last season. Juventus have, made no bones about the fact that that's something that they're preferring to do whenever they're looking to get deals done at the moment. Juve always offer up players rather than full cash at the moment because it's an easier way to trim your own squad and then also take on another big wage. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that will happen. And clubs have always got players on the fringes that are unhappy or or they're looking to move on in the last 2 years of their contract. So that's certainly something that I think will happen. But look, there are other players out there as well, and Haaland's not the only striker that these clubs can buy. So I don't think it's like all or nothing with Haaland. There's plenty of other players out there, and we've mentioned last week, Lukaku and Kane and Lautaro Martinez and these players that are also high on everybody's wish list if they become available.
Yeah, it's going to be a big summer maybe of moves for the top strikers across the world. But I think the thing with Haaland is he's such a special talent. All these big clubs don't really want him going to a rival. Barcelona don't want to see him in Real Madrid colours. Real Madrid don't want to see him in Barcelona colours. That's going to drive up the price of Haaland as well. So Dortmund looking like could be the big winners of this.
That is true, and that is something that Dortmund will definitely be thinking. They know that they've got pretty much a once in a generation player, right? I mean, they're obviously at this time there's two because there's Mbappe as well. But in terms of actual complete striker, Haaland's your man. I mean, even if you saw the game at the Etihad, he's just got such belief. Even when he doesn't score, he's causing problems. I think City hated playing against him. There was Phil Foden whispering actually to Haaland at the end. I would really wanted to know what he was saying. It was clearly something about hopefully see you back here soon. And I'm sure they do hope that. I do think that City are right in the race. I've seen a few reports recently saying that United might be ahead of City. I don't see it that way personally. I think that City have got a really good chance of getting him if he decides to leave Dortmund and if he decides that the Premier League's the place to come.
Yeah, he's been careful in his decision so far. When he left Molde, he went to RB Salzburg for his next stage in his career. Then he's obviously turned down other big clubs to go to Dortmund in the first instance as well. So I think pathway for Erling Haaland is going to be key for wherever he does end up in the summer. If he does move at all, I still think 2022 is probably more realistic for Haaland to leave. A lot depends on Dortmund. If they get Champions League football, I think he will stay. If he doesn't, it increases his chances that he might move on. But I think the figures we're talking about now, I just think it's hard for any of those big clubs to afford that right now. And I think football probably needs to reset for 12 months and then they might be able to go out there and splash the big money on Haaland. But whatever happens, it's going to be an interesting summer to see what happens with Haaland's future. Another big summer transfer saga could revolve around Mo Salah this summer. Dean, again, recent reports suggesting that Salah is maybe inkling for a move away from Anfield, and he gave an interview to Spanish newspapers just before the Real Madrid game suggesting that he could see himself playing in Spain one day, while some insiders at Liverpool have been suggesting they fear Salah might move on as well, that he's possibly looking for a new challenge as well. What's your take on the future for Mo Salah?
Yeah, look, that's the third time he's given an interview like that now in like 3 months. So clearly Salah is starting to think about life after Liverpool. I've been told for a few months too that he definitely has ambition to test himself somewhere else. And he wants to be, remembered as basically one of the best players, not of just this generation, but basically of all time. He wants to go down in the history books as a player that people talk about as one of the greats. And he's had a great spell at Liverpool. He's exceeded expectation. But he wants to show that this isn't his ceiling and that he could go and do it at a Barcelona or Real Madrid. I genuinely believe that he has ambition to do that and that time is running out to make that move. And I think that at a time when Liverpool's momentum has really, really, well, not just slowed down, it's just completely fallen away, hasn't it, their season? And, from winning the Champions League, winning the Premier League, now pretty much nothing. Why stay? Like, if a club genuinely comes along now with the money, I think he would probably be willing to go. And I think that he sees Real Madrid as a realistic path out. That's going to involve a couple of things happening, though. I think, one, Gareth Bale definitely has to move on. And two, possibly even Eden Hazard, I think that's something that Madrid are going to have to weigh up heavily now. Hazard's had such a difficult time. If they could find a buyer for Hazard, then I don't think it's inconceivable that he could leave the Bernabeu. But yeah, I think that Salah's people are definitely putting the feelers out, and I think it's no coincidence he keeps talking about this.
Yeah, it seems he only gives interviews to Spanish newspapers, no one else.
Yeah, funny that, right?
It's quite funny that it seems to be them. But yeah, we all know his dream's been to play in Spain. I think Liverpool probably feel they're in a strong position because of the financial situation of the Spanish big boys. Real Madrid and Barcelona, as we mentioned before, haven't got the money probably to meet what Liverpool would ask for Mo Salah right now. He's still got just over 2 years left on his contract as well. So probably thinking, unless our price tag is met, we're not going to sell Mo Salah. And despite Liverpool's struggles this year, Dean, Salah still produced the goods. He's still got the numbers. He's got the goals. Despite all Liverpool's disappointing Premier League campaign, he's still up there among the highest goal scorers and doing his job for the team.
Yeah, look, if Liverpool are going to keep him, the other side to this is that Salah's probably thinking, well, I want a new contract and I want to be recognised as one of the highest paid players in the Premier League, because right now he's not quite there. You know, he's obviously earns a very good wage, but he's not in the very, very top bracket of earners. And that's something he obviously wants Liverpool to look at the end of the season if they want to keep him. And at the moment, he's not considered the priority. They're going to look at Van Dijk and Fabinho, I think, before that talk comes around. And they're also looking at, you know, which players do they keep? Who do they sign? Clearly, they're going to sign at least one centre-back, probably a midfielder as well. Do they want to be adding a forward to that as well and having to replace Mo Salah? One thing I've heard is that they've got half an eye on Emi Buendia in case Salah did move on. Like, that could potentially be one of the players that they would move for. I'm not saying that that's far along the line or anything like that, but you know, he's one of, I'm sure, many players that they're monitoring and seeing what kind of price he would be available at. But then, you know, is Emi Buendia ready to step into the shoes of Mo Salah? Probably not consistently. Like, he's definitely got flashes of it, and I'm sure he could have some very, very good games and good impacts. But Liverpool needs somebody that they can rely on, because this season, Salah's one of the only people they have been able to rely on regularly, right, for goals. And, you know, Mane hasn't had his shooting boots on again. Firmino hasn't. And that's been part of their downfall. So if you're going to lose Salah, you've got to have someone special lined up to come in.
Yeah, it would be a massive loss to lose Salah. As I say, he continues to produce the goods. He scored the goals. Second highest scorer in the Premier League. His goal scoring record for Liverpool is second to none against all the other legends as well. I think for away goals, he's overtaken just Ian Rush is ahead of him for the most goals away from home for Liverpool as well in such a short space of time as well. But I think for Liverpool, could they maybe see a Coutinho option here, cash in and Mo Salah? They can strengthen the squad elsewhere by using that money.
Possibly, yeah. But as I say, I just think you're losing such a source of goals that it's a massive risk. With Coutinho, they always felt that they could transition forwards from that, and it actually might make them stronger without Coutinho. And although most of us couldn't see it at the time, it proved to be right. Like, it was a really good move at that time. Don't think it's the same with Salah, to be honest. I don't. I think it would be much, much more risky, especially on the back of this season that Liverpool have just had, to lose Mo Salah, especially at a time, you know, you're a Liverpool fan heading back in next season and you're no longer Premier League champions. Salah's no longer out there. Van Dijk's coming back from a serious injury. Like, you'd be seriously concerned about where you were going to end up and what your aims were. So I think that's what Liverpool have to get in check as well very quickly. Like, what's their ambition right now? They've got to spend surely as much money as they can possibly afford to in other positions. I just think this is going to be a step too far if they were to lose Salah as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't give out the right signals if Mo Salah was to leave Anfield this summer for anything of a new Premier League title challenge next season, to lose your star player, even if you did get good money for him. So I think this one, I would say it's unlikely that Mo Salah leaves this summer, but again, I think this rumour is going to continue on that maybe he's unhappy at Liverpool and he probably will leave before the end of his contract, but maybe not this summer. Manchester United going to be in for a busy summer, Dean. We all know they are in the race for Haaland and other potential striking targets, but I think centre-back is a key area for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to strengthen this summer as well. And coinciding with that, we've also got doubts over Eric Bailly's long-term future at Old Trafford. He's been a popular figure among United fans whenever he's been fit. They feel he's a better choice to play alongside Harry Maguire than Victor Lindelof, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer seems to favour Lindelof alongside Maguire. So he's entering the final year of his contract. He's a bit frustrated with his lack of first-team football. Real chance he could possibly move on this summer?
It seems that he's thinking about it. Yeah, United have had positive discussions this year about trying to keep Bailly. He does need a new contract. It's beginning to wind down. But Bailly, from what I'm told, just isn't convinced anymore. He obviously has a lot of setbacks with injuries. He's got COVID at the moment. he just can't get the run of games. Hasn't played anywhere near the amount of games you would have thought he would when he was signed. And yeah, Solskjaer does tend to go towards the Lindelof-Maguire partnership rather than the Bailly-Maguire one, which there are people at the club who think that that's the future. And to be honest, I was told that that's what they were hoping would save them some money in the transfer market. If Bailly could stay fit and find form, then to have those three centre-backs, they felt was good enough. Because you've got to think, even when Lindelof plays, he keeps a lot of clean sheets. Like, he's not like he's a disaster. Mm. So they were content going forward. But if they lose Bailly, it will leave them no choice but to go into the market. And look, they'll have to see where they can turn to. I mean, Konaté is heavily linked with Liverpool, and it's one they are seriously looking into. But he's also kind of on United's radar as well. They're nowhere near as far down with it as Liverpool are, but he's been on their radar. But as has Jules Koundé from Sevilla and Pau Torres of Villarreal, and even Rafa Varane at Madrid. Like, while there's been doubts about his contract situation, they're just waiting to see if he was to become available. Same as when Sergio Ramos was touted. Like, if a player was like that to become available and they were cheap or free, then yeah, we'll go for that. So they're kind of open to what options could come along here. But if Bailly decides he wants to leave, and I think that if that's the case, he's going to tell them by the end of the season, United will have to replace him.
Yeah, they can't go into next season just with two centre-backs and one who possibly could move on. I know you've mentioned Inter Milan might be interested in Bailly as well. Is that a serious option for the Ivory Coast international? Obviously, Inter have got good relations with United, having signed Romelu Lukaku, Ashley Young from the Old Trafford hierarchy. Yeah. So maybe Eric Bailly could be the next one on his way to Inter.
Could be, but I'm pretty sure Inter still owe United for Lukaku. I don't think they've anywhere near finished paying for that deal yet. So, and obviously Inter have got financial problems at the moment in terms of getting cash flow. And they're looking for a big loan at the moment to help them through short term. So that is definitely a potential problem. And United aren't probably going to let them have Bailly for 20 million when they're still owed whatever it is, 40 million for Lukaku. So that's an interesting factor that could come into it. But Inter are kind of just the first club that we're aware that are interested in Bailly if he becomes available. There'll be more interest as well. And I think particularly, I think Spain or Italy will be two destinations he'll be interested in.
Yeah, when fit, Eric Bailly's a top-class centre-back. It's just he's been unlucky with injuries during his time at Old Trafford, but I think he's a good player in there if he can stay fit, and I'm sure a lot of takers for him in the summer if he does decide to leave Old Trafford for a new challenge. Another player potentially leaving Old Trafford on a permanent basis this summer, Jesse Lingard. Dean, what an impact he's had at West Ham since joining in January. It's been nothing short of amazing. He's won his place back in the England squad after 18 months out. He's spearheading West Ham's bid to finish in the top four. Signing of the season, even though he probably only joined in January as well. 6 goals in 8 games. Jesse Lingard been inspired piece of business by David Moyes at West Ham, but the Hammers must be kicking themselves a bit that they did not include a buy option in his initial loan deal. Probably could have signed him for 15 million in January. That price has doubled, if not more now, with his recent form, Dean. So Manchester United are in a good place with this whole Jesse Lingard situation.
Yeah, well, United had an idea here, and it's totally paid off. There was obviously the potential of a 15 million buyout, and that's what West Ham thought anyway, and that's something they were looking into. And actually, it transpired that United weren't really interested in that happening because they had a feeling that if Lingard found form, he'd be back in the England picture and suddenly his value's going up. And what they imagined has exactly happened. It does make you wonder why, if they had faith in him going and be successful somewhere else, they didn't have any faith in him being successful in their own team. But let's see whether West Ham can do something here, because they do want the player permanently. And they need to figure out now how they can talk to United and figure out a deal for it to happen. Because like you say, like 15 million is definitely out the window. Even 20 million is probably out the window now. So I'd say you're looking at £25 million here to sign Jesse Lingard. Listen, we've seen West Ham linked with many, many, many players over the years for this amount of money and more. And none of them were well, as proven as Jesse Lingard, let's put it that way, after the impact that he's had for them on loan. So even at 25 million, I think this would be a really good piece of business. I think the West Ham fans would love him to become part of the setup. But yeah, there's nothing in place at the moment. And West Ham, to be honest, can't wait to have the discussion with United and just find out what they've got to do to sign him. Because I think that at this point, Jesse Lingard's probably had his head turned. This is a club he's been at United since he was 6. I don't think he imagined going anywhere else, but he's got a taste now of what it's like to be the star man and to be there every single week as a talisman, as a goal scorer. And I think he's quite enjoying it. So, yeah, I think that he might even himself now just be more tempted than ever before to actually leave United permanently.
Yeah, I think Jesse Lingard, in the position he's in right now, he's got to be pushing for that move. He's playing regular football. He's shown his worth to West Ham United. The fans already love him. I think I saw somebody design their garage the other day in his goal celebration as well. So he's already winning over those Hammers fans. But do you think there's any chance that United might think, oh, we might keep Jesse Lingard now? He's proved us wrong. He's shown his worth. Or do you think his time has come and gone at United?
I think it depends what happens with the rest of the squad, and I think it depends who they lose. Like I said before, if Juan Mata leaves, I mean, there's potential that he signs a new contract, but I think it's still unlikely. So if Mata leaves, do they replace him, or do you just bring Jesse Lingard back? I mean, to me, you just bring Jesse Lingard back. There's no reason why not. But it might be, look, maybe something's there between Solskjaer and him that just isn't working, because I can't really figure out why Lingard wasn't in the thinking at all. He's always one of the fittest players they had in the squad. You even see that he's gone straight into West Ham, hasn't played all season, and he's straight into the rhythm of it. There's not many players that could do that. I think Jesse's a really good professional. He's a very likeable character around training grounds, in changing rooms. His impact on the pitch is clear. So I think United should be considering having him back. But I do think at this stage, I would fancy him to actually leave and join West Ham.
Yeah, I don't think Jesse Lingard's going to want to go back and be a bit part player at United. He's not probably going to get in that starting 11 despite his fine form. So I think for all parties, maybe best to move on, and Jesse Lingard can go and play regular first-team football, keep his place in that England squad. But the negative for West Ham, Dean, is his form there has probably attracted interest from other clubs as well.
Yeah, I think if you were like maybe Leicester City, you would be looking at this and thinking, hang on, this could be a nice bit of business. I mean, the other club that really looked at signing Jesse Lingard in January was Sheffield United, and they'll be very disappointed that they didn't manage to get that done. But ultimately, Lingard didn't want to be in a relegation battle, and fair enough, because now he's literally challenging to be in the Champions League. So it was a good move for him. But yeah, I think there'll be 2 or 3 clubs also interested. But if you've gone into a club and fitted in this well, I think you just go for it, to be honest. I don't think you worry too much about other things, especially if West Ham qualify for European football next season.
Yeah, I think Champions League football for West Ham would be a big draw for Lingard, and it would give West Ham the funds to try and maybe pay that 25 million that United will obviously demand for Lingard come the summer if they are to sell him. So Lingard, he scored probably a goal of the season contender against Wolves on Monday night. But looking at Wolves, what's happened to them this season, team? 7th in the last 2 seasons. Nuno Espirito Santo had really built a really solid team up. Molineux were challenging in Europe, did well in the Europa League last year as well, but this season's been a real disappointment for them. 14th position right now, just 9 above the relegation zone, and it's probably not a season many people expected that Wolves to suffer this season. What could you put that down to, and do you think Nuno's under any real pressure at Molineux?
I think he's had a really tough task this season because, start the season, he's lost Diogo Jota, Matt Doherty, 2 really key players to the setup. And then he loses Raul Jimenez as well to a serious injury. I mean, to take those 3 out of your setup, that's huge. You talk about Liverpool and the type of injuries they've had and why they've been impacted, and people willing to give Klopp the benefit of the doubt of that. Well, I think Nuno deserves exactly the same, to be honest with you, because the losses that he's had have been so influential. Obviously, he's had to balance a bit of European football and expectation and all these kinds of things as well, which he'd never really had to think about before. People expecting him to get in there among the top 6. And I think it's really tricky for a club like Wolves to actually be expected to challenge up at that end of the table. I think that, some of their transfer business probably hasn't quite paid off in the way that they will have hoped. But ultimately, look, if Jorge Mendes is going to stay part of Wolves, then maybe they'll get another couple of gems coming out for the next transfer window. I don't know what he's got. I don't know what he's got lined up for them next. But
some more top Portuguese youngsters, I'm sure, will be heading to Molineux this
exactly,
summer.
yeah. And I think that if you'd have said 6 months ago, is there any clubs that would be interested in Nuno as their manager? Then yes, definitely. I think I even remember him being linked to Chelsea at some point. So look, you've got to keep faith sometimes and let him have another crack at turning things around, because he knows the club. He's done really well to get them to where they are. And, the grass is not always greener, as we've seen so many times.
Yeah, I definitely think he's got credit in the bank at Wolves for what he's done in the first 2 seasons they were back in the Prem, finishing seventh, qualifying for Europe, and even the style of football. Some real exciting players, like you said, Jota before his move to Liverpool. But I think probably the key for Wolves this season, where they've struggled, has been since the injury to Raul Jimenez. I think before he got injured, they were in sixth place in the table before that horrific skull fracture he suffered against Arsenal, and they just haven't been able to replace his goals in the team. I think Fabio Silva, a big money signing in the summer from Porto, he's only scored 3 goals, while Willian Jose, who came from Real Sociedad in January, is still yet to score. So I think that's probably been the key reason why Wolves have found themselves in the wrong half of the table this season.
Yeah, totally that. And I mean, you also got to consider like Adama Traore, a player that's considered to be a £50 million talent and wanted by like Barcelona at one point. What's he done this season? Not a lot.
He's oiled up his arms nicely.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, no, he's a good player, but he hasn't kicked on from the level from where we thought he would be at this point. And then you've got players like Podence who show potential to do well, but then they're out of the side for a bit. They get injured. Pedro Neto, signs there, but like there's just not that consistent goal threat that they had before. So as soon as that's taken away in Raul Jimenez, you're struggling, and it's just proved too much for them.
Yeah, I think once he comes back, hopefully fully fit, we'll see an improved Wolves next season, because he is their talisman, and they'll be desperate for him to be fit next season to lead the line up Molineux. But yeah, that's us for another week here on Touchline Talk. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week for more discussion on all the topics around the world of football.